My secret, just do something that ain't nobody ever done before, but make it sound like something that's always been there forever.
This Filipino American Life is a podcast that explores the nuanced experiences of Filipinos in the United States. At iba pa, my name is Elaine Delalas, and I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts,
Ryan Carpio,
Joe Bernardo,
and
Mike.
Producer Mike. The air horn is back.
I know.
Pew, pew. On this episode, we have some fun things to say, like our TFAL pan of the episode. It is, her name is Ria Vaflor. Ria Vaflor. Thank you for contributing to our Patreon. Thank you for being a TFAL Patreon. You help us with our website and with putting everything together, and it's amazing.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it should air horn that, but pew pew pew. Pew, pew, pew. TFL pen. TFL pen. And we would love to give a shout out to Brown Baked Desserts.
Oh, thank you so much.
I am currently eating one of the cookies.
So Brown Baked Desserts is by TFL friend who gave us a delicious tray of cookies, which we will post on the blog post so you can see. They are amazing. They're made by Jason Lastina, who is based out in the San Fernando Valley. If you are on Instagram, you can find him at brown.baked. And if you're on Facebook, you can search Brown Bake. We'll link it on the blog post. But he makes these amazing... What cookie are you eating right now, Ryan?
I'm eating the one that's like turon.
Turon.
It's like has banana
Turon flavor,
langka.
yeah.
Turon flavor with banana langka. There's ube crinkle cookies, ube Oreo cookies. There's a buko pandan cookie, which is not on this tray because it's probably been eaten already. Calamansi, turon, and the new exclusive. It was exclusive to us as today, as we record, the babinka cookie.
I kind of feel bad for those listening to me eat this because it's delicious.
Which one was your favorite?
Mike?
I like the calamansi one.
That was good.
Because I kind of like, citrusy kind of desserts and things like that. So
It's really
I actually ate like 2 or 3 of those now.
It was really good.
What's your favorite, Joe?
I like the Turon one.
Ooh. I haven't had that one yet. I should try
Oh,
that
it's
one.
good. It's bomb.
I like the Turon one too. It's good.
Okay, I'm gonna try this. This is the Turon one, right?
Yeah.
If you follow me on Instagram, I did an Insta story when Jason dropped off the cookies, and I pretty much had an orgasm in the video because it was it was so good. So
TMI.
Can you put that on
Bastos.
on other formats other than Instagram?
maybe if I download it, I gotta figure it out. I don't know the social needs.
I know. Still technology.
So much tech, high tech. Okay, so I'm holding a Turon. I'm going to eat it right now. Oh my god, that's
She's not embellishing either.
No.
It's really good.
It's really good.
that's really good. Sorry, I'm eating, but yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Support Brown Bake if you're local to LA or San Fernando Valley or local area. It's not it's like a home based. So if you put in orders, he'll deliver to you or whatnot. He'll make arrangements.
And I've tried a lot of the, these new Filipino desserts, all around LA and all around. I tried some in the Bay. These are actually the best cookies out there.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm not gonna name the people who I thought used to be the good best cookies, but these by far the best cookies in the Filipino dessert game.
I trust your taste buds, Joe.
I do,
and I
as
trust mine.
Although
they're
caveat, I haven't gone to every one of them. But I've been to a bunch, whole lot of them.
Yeah.
I'm still eating this. It's really delicious. But so on this episode that you are listening to right now, we're going to talk about gaming and Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons.
What is Dungeons and Dragons?
I guess we'll find out later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D&D. That is Ryan's bra size.
Dad joke.
Dude, how long were you thinking of that?
Right now, I swear.
Nice. Well done.
So obviously, based on that conversation, Joe and Ryan have not played D&D.
No.
I have not played D&D. Mike, have you played D&D?
I have never played D&D, actually, believe it or not.
This is going to be an interesting conversation.
I think we're going to learn something today when we talk to our guests.
But you've played other games, right?
Yeah, I played a lot of role-playing games, and I always feel like I should be playing D&D, but...
Stop snickering. It's not like that.
I mean, like, I think it's just the idea of like lots of math and remembering stuff is always repellent to me, but people seem to enjoy it, so, maybe we'll get into it.
Yeah, I think that's one deterrent for me for D&D is that you have to like calculate things like percentages and like whether or not you have enough.
There's a lot of math in it?
There's math.
See, I didn't even know that.
So,
I
like,
thought it was just like stories and
It's
like
stories, but like when you factor in if you're fighting and then like do you have enough energy or do you have enough health or do you have enough like anything? It's all math based. So in video games, the game figures that out for you.
Yeah.
But in D&D, you gotta figure it out for yourself.
Oh, so there's a lot of cheating involved.
Hopefully not. So I have a feeling I would be bad at D&D because when we used to play dominoes in college and even thereafter college, I used to ruin games because I couldn't count. I didn't know how to count houses correctly, and that's just increments of 5.
Up to
It's increments of 5, like 5, 10, 15, 20, and I would ruin things.
Wait, who actually brought up the idea to talk about games for this episode? Where did that come from?
It came from me
And why'd you want to talk about it?
because I like video games. I play video games. You play video games, Mike.
beat your games.
And so I wanted to talk to Earl Bailon and Edrin Sumagaisai. Earl is my semi-cousin and that I went to college with. And I say semi-cousin, I call him semi-cuz, because in that Filipino way, we share a cousin but through different sides.
Understood.
So my cousins...
Not really.
Just different sides of the family.
So,
No,
if I was related to Ryan, I would be like my mom would be sisters with his mom, and let's say you were related to Ryan, but your dad was related to his dad.
Oh, okay.
So
Just related by marriage.
Yeah.
related by marriage, yeah.
So you and Elaine would be
semi cousins.
Cousin-in-laws, maybe?
Okay. Cousin-in-law.
Yeah.
Sure, cousin-in-law, but I like
Once
semi-cuz.
removed, twice removed.
So I've been calling Earl semi-cuz all this time, and Earl is a voiceover actor as well and an actor, and he was in the cool Tomb Raider games that you used to play, Mike.
I played very recently, actually, so not really used to, but
Yeah, and so I just wanted to hear like his story about games and whatnot, and like my history with games. Like I played Street Fighter in the 90s. I wasn't really allowed to go to the donut shop and do that, like put my quarter up. I was also too intimidated because gangsters would be playing.
And they'd be already in fight mode.
Literally. But like the games I like to play now, they're either role playing games like Dragon Quest, not sexual. Ryan, stop shit.
I didn't
Stop
say
it.
anything.
Stop looking at me like that. But like role playing games like that, like Dragon Quest, Golden Sun is one, but I really like puzzle games like Puzzle Fighter, which it's like puzzle, it's like Tetris.
Oh, yeah.
Tetris
But-
plus Street Fighter.
Tetris
right?
plus Street Fighter, and they look really cute.
It's like the dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs?
Oh, that's Bubble Bobble.
That's Bubble Bobble. I did play that.
Yeah.
Bubble Bobble or Bust a Move or Bust. Yeah,
Oh, Bust a Move.
that's what I learned it as.
Bust a Move.
Well, what did you guys play?
I had a Nintendo when I was a kid, and we couldn't afford many games as I, grew older, so I kind of just stopped.
They were expensive.
Yeah, they're like
were.
$50 a game. Yeah. So video games I didn't really play. I didn't play that much until I didn't play that much after middle school. Board games when I was a kid, we used to play Life a lot and Monopoly, but maybe chess.
Did you go to prison? Is that what you did on the streets?
No, when I was like alone
on
or
these
like
streets.
usually when I was with my friends, we play basketball or like
You play outside games.
outside games. Or when I was alone, I watch a lot of TV. So I don't know. I just never really got into like games, role playing games. Like I played like once.
What
But
game?
I don't remember. It was like
What was your safe word?
Stop! Stop it!
Student teacher.
Stop it! Stop it!
Sorry.
no, I never got into role playing games. Yeah, it was just I don't know. Sometimes I had issues with them.
Issues?
Not issues, but like
Damn you, role playing games.
I always felt they were always. It was always based off English medieval folklore, and I was totally turned off by that whole genre.
Well, it's interesting because I think the fact that it was it exposed me to a lot of those things I would have not known otherwise. Like I wouldn't know like a lot of this like European based kind of like fantasy lore that's I think imbued in like a lot of like the literature and like fantasy novels in general. But yeah, I think I wouldn't have known things like like white magic, dark magic from the European context, right?
Yeah.
Or like, like mythological creatures or like heroes like
Like the
Beowulf
Jabberwocky.
or whatever. Those kind of random
Jabberwocky?
Not the dancer, but the actual
Oh, really?
monster.
Oh,
It's in Alice
there's a
in
monster?
Wonderland. It's in part 2. It's through the looking glass. The actual monster is called the Jabberwocky.
And actually, like a lot of like the Final Fantasy series and some of those video game role playing games, like have a lot of Christian mythology imbued within them as
Yes.
well. But they kind of change the name so they don't have to run afoul of like religious groups and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, I never got into that motif, and that's why I never got into it.
I was kind of like Joe. I never got into Dungeons and Dragons. Growing up, I didn't know about it. I only knew about it maybe in high school as a reference. I think we had a group in our school that's like a Dungeons and Dragons group or Magic the Gathering. There was always like a group that would meet during lunchtime and play something. But growing up, I play cards a lot. Even when I was young, it was my family. We played a lot of puzzle games or Scrabble or Boggle.
Scrabble. I love Scrabble.
But that's kind of like how I learned. I love crossword puzzles. Cards was a big deal for us. Then coming to the States, video games was Nintendo. I never actually graduated to Super Nintendo at all.
Yeah, me neither. I got really into Nintendo, and that's it.
Yeah, I borrowed games. I've never bought a Nintendo game in my life.
What?
Never. I had a Nintendo system that came with the original games.
You just stole it all.
No, I borrowed it. I borrowed it.
Borrowed.
And never returned it.
It's
'cause
Ryan.
people-
Living in these streets, Ryan.
Well, people graduated to Super NES, which had your Street Fighter
and then
and your Mortal Kombat, and then I would get the leftovers from my friends, and here I am trying to pass Super Mario Brothers 2 or 3, which is one of the best games ever. And while people were going to Sega Genesis and Super NES, playing Mario Kart. So actually, even though I played Street Fighter, I probably did one of those things going to like the 7-Eleven
Yeah.
and the quarters thing,
Yeah.
but never really one of those people.
I think I only owned a Nintendo, like a regular NES. I remember my tita worked at Fedco, which was like a local
Fedco.
membership store. And so that's the only way I got certain games because my parents got them at a discount. The biggest game that I ever got was Double Dragon. And I love that game. And I never beat it because it was super hard. And I always got stuck on the level where like a Bobo like would ruin you or something. So I was like, oh, I'm
Adobo.
dead.
I always call him Adobo.
I know, but his name is a Bobo.
Adobo.
But I remember like my dad would play Top Gun. He like really liked that game. Like
That was really hard.
Because you had to land on the aircraft
Yeah.
carrier.
Crash.
I would never get it past when you had to refuel in the air. That was really hard. Like I just
you can? I don't know.
Yeah, there's I wouldn't pass that. Oh, and Tiger Heli. That was like I was all about Tiger Heli.
Oh my gosh.
I can play that. That soundtrack's like playing in my mind right now as I say it. But I didn't get a Super NES, but my cousins did, like Vince and Charles and them. And so I would play Street Fighter and all those games at their house. And so we would always play, and we'd always yell at each other, and we'd get in fights.
Did they have the joystick controller?
No.
Because my friend got one of those, and it was like the hit. Like he got 2 of the joystick.
Oh,
controllers.
the NES.
The arcade controller.
Was it the Max or the Advantage? Which one?
I think
was
it was called something like that.
Yeah.
It's
Because
like a big panel, right?
Yeah.
yeah, and then because at the arcade
That's
it
how
would
you
have
play.
like the joystick,
Yeah.
and then you kind of have to like, play with the Super NES controllers with the 2 fingers up the top.
Yeah.
And then one day my friend got the joystick, and it was like, oh, this is
but it's
cool.
really, yeah.
I'm like, that's the only games we played it for that in the.
Dude, we were at Fry's earlier today, and like Elaine texted me a picture of a controller like that for the Switch.
Nintendo Switch.
I was like,
cool.
I don't know if I wanted to pay $150 for a joystick. So
That's what it was, $159.99 for a joystick. But I was just like,
Wow.
oh, but we can play
for the
Street
pros,
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Do you feel that gaming, kind of video games and just role-playing games, kind of just games in general, are they a sense of escape? Or a sense
Absolutely.
of fantasy?
Yes.
Yeah, I think any game, right, is like a form of enjoyment towards something that takes your mind off like something currently like in front of you.
Okay.
Right?
I will give you a prime example as to why a certain game is my escape. I have been playing, because of Mike, it's his fault, a series called Animal Crossing since its GameCube inception. Animal Crossing is just like a Sims type of game. It's like a life experience game. Like you live in a house, you do little jobs, you pay a mortgage to a rapscallion named Nook. You have to pay him all the bells.
Like Second Life, kind of thing?
Yes, it's
Okay,
Second Life.
okay.
And there is no way to win. You just live. You pull weeds, you go fishing, you do these things. And I play it every iteration. It's been on GameCube, it's been on Nintendo, on the DS, it's been on
on the Wii,
on the Wii,
yeah.
on the Wii U. I have played it on everything, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I will be all in for a few months, and then like a new game will come. But then I will sometimes go back to my town, and it will have like quote unquote died, and by died it means that there's a shit ton of weeds that I need to pull. My
Just
neighbors
neglect.
Like my neighbors have moved. I have a bunch of letters in my mailbox saying, "How come you haven't written me back? Where are you?" Like things like that. But I love that game, and in times where I was like kind of depressed at work, Animal Crossing on my 3DS or on my DS at the time, they were like the most important valued moments to me.
Wow.
Wow.
I would like shut my door at work because I was like, it's my hour, and I would just play. Like I would fish. I would like, get fruit from trees. Like that's part of the game. I would go shopping. Like it's just a second life. And like it was a form of escapism. And it would also help that Mike would have the game, and then you could interact with each other like through the system. So like we could trade like fruit or we could do other things. So that's one of those things, like for sure it's escapism for me. What about you, Mike?
I wasn't a very physically active kid, so it was more like it was the one thing that I was actually kind of good at, and that I wouldn't have to like go outside for all the time. I mean, I liked being outside, but I think the games that I enjoyed the most were role playing games, and I would marathon those games for like hours, like to the point where my parents had to take the games away from me every now and then. So I mean, like I'd spend like an entire Saturday, or like I was when I was in school, I was like on a year-round schedule, so it wasn't like people have like a 3-month summer vacation. I had a vacation every 2 months for like a month, so I'd be like home alone, or like my grandparents were there taking care of me, and so I'd just go from like waking up to like really late at night just playing this game, good like 12-hour clip. Because the story is so involved, and there's a lot of aspects of trying to like level up your characters and build up kind of their skill sets and their weaponry and everything else. And so I think like, for example, like Final Fantasy 3, which was on the Super Nintendo, you can see how much time you put into the game. I think I exceeded a good like 90 hours on that game. And I think people who have like really gotten into like trying to get everything in the game, like accomplish everything you can accomplish, you could probably exceed a good like 100+ hours. Like Zelda on the Nintendo Switch, which was the last big role playing game I played, I think about 150 hours on that game. I don't even play that much really, but I mean, I have 150 hours spent on this game that I'm not even close to finishing yet.
He hasn't finished it yet.
So
he hasn't beat the last boss.
because I mean, for me, it's more about like the journey and like kind of going through that. And I guess the way that I look at it is like, you know, there's these kind of things you want to accomplish, and you have to go through these steps or kind of figure out these little puzzles or whatever. And so like, you know, like maybe to the bitter end, like those are the aspects that are more important to me than actually finishing the game itself. And so, you know, so I mean, it's not necessarily like as an escape kind of thing, but more like I feel like it's something that, you know, I can actually do and be good at and don't have to like run around because I am just like not athletic in any way whatsoever. But also because like there's a kind of this weird sense of accomplishment of being able to like, oh, I figured out that dungeon, you know, so those kind of things.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually been in preparation for this episode. I've been watching or I've been reading, I guess, this one book about kind of it's a cultural study of video games and how certain video games, even though they're kind of escape from the harshness of the real world, they, I guess, reinforce certain like hierarchies. Like they reinforce stuff like race, and they reinforce stuff like gender. Like women are continuing to be objectified in video games. Something like that. I know that's kind of deep, but like
I was thinking just Super Mario Brothers, but now I'm thinking Super Mario. Oh, no wonder.
Saving the princess.
Right.
Come on, a princess can't be saved by herself.
Right.
But stuff like that. And I was just wondering if you guys have any encounters or observations on that aspect.
I think, yeah, you know, for sure. Like, there's definitely like, kind of like reflecting real life. You know, there's a certain fantasy towards the competition during like playing a game or beating it or winning or being the good guy. And there's definitely a generational like competition towards like saving the princess, or even like the way characters are drawn, right? Like the way characters are drawn, female versus male, or
they have like huge like breasts,
right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, how, you know, even though your protagonist might be like a hero that's female and strong, you know, but the way they're drawn are, you know, it's very, I don't know, it appeals to a certain demographic, I imagine. So I think all those are true, and I think the fact that they're fantasy or, you know, a second life, quote unquote, they take liberties as to, you know, there's certain liberties that are taken towards like it being so unreal that maybe you can get away with it, you know, because it is, you know, you can almost reference it as a, you know, a throwback, or this is, you know, or it's not even real. So what can you necessarily complain about? But the evolution of games to me has become so much like what Elaine was talking about. Like it is a second life. And like, you know, just comparing like the 20 years of games, there's a reason why I actually don't play a lot of video games now. It's all too real for me. I'm like, I remember playing first person games in a dark room and getting freaked out because, you know, you're in front of a screen and have nightmares. Like that.
Like Call of Duty or something, like kill terrorists or something like that.
Or even like the more fantastical ones.
Monsters.
Yeah, I remember I had a short phase where I thought I would try a first person shooter type game, and I bought Gears of War for the Xbox. Remember when I had
bought that?
I bought that.
Oh, okay.
I bought that, or I don't know if you bought it, but I tried to play it, and I would get scared when things would come at me. I'm like, ah! And I'd be like, no, and then it didn't help that the controller also shook when you would get attacked, and I'd be like, I don't like this. So, but to your point about like it being misogynistic or whatnot, or like racist or something like that,
or just any kind of reinforcing hikers.
Yeah, like. I think the way I played video games was like I compartmentalized it to the point that I didn't believe that these were like white people or brown people or whatnot, you know, like these were like in Dragon Quest you have to kill like little teardrop squib thingies, and so like when you're doing that you're not a person, like, or you are a person but you're not there, it's not a race there, you know. And then also a lot of the games I play, they don't have human characters. Animal Crossing, you are the only human in a character of animals, like adorable animals that talk to you. And then when I play Tetris, I mean, that's the thing, like Tetris or Bust a Move or something, that there's no people in there. It's just
It privileges Russians, though.
If I get to the end and I get the Kremlin,
Yeah, it blows up to the moon.
Well, I mean, an interesting layer to put on top of that too, though, if you think about it, is that a lot of times, at least in the initial days of video gaming, a lot of that was the Japanese interpretation of the reflections on European cultural kind of like, you know, symbols and ideas. And so I mean, these days, I mean, game studios are everywhere and like, you know, the games developed all across the world. But, you know, in the initial stages of like, you know, deeper video gaming, you know, a lot of them were kind of just these Japanese kind of almost caricatures in some ways of like what they understood like Western values and ideas to be. And so it's kind of like layer upon layer upon layer about like how that is being interpreted and depicted. And so, you know,
I continue to be like fascinated by the video game evolution. I just, you know, when we were younger and you know, I've been introduced to Atari and Nintendo and just, I remember thinking from Super Mario 1 to Super Mario 3.
Oh yeah.
How huge that was. To be able to go backwards. That was the whole thing. Was to be able to go backwards. I mean, you could do it in Super Mario 2 also, but Super Mario 2 had like a very weird like thing to it. But the evolution of a certain game and the world that it brings you to and the things that it makes you remember as a kid. We all remember the music from Super Mario 1, you know? Like and I think just kind of extrapolating from that, like the games that we end up loving. I love Mega Man 2, and all those kind of games where you destroy the evil doctor and all that stuff. And like there's an end game to it. To games where it's competition, to like Street Fighter and the
Mario Kart
and like this idea of playing against somebody else. And you know, and the evolution of that to online gaming and to like real world, almost like alternate world kind of gaming where there's no end.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's all fascinating to me.
I think like you guys are talking about the kind of communal aspects of gaming. I don't like playing with people online. I kind of like the soul solitary experience of video gaming. Like,
how come?
I think like number one, I don't like the idea that my gameplay is being measured by somebody else who's playing a game.
Mike hates
It's
people.
not a competition for you.
Yeah, it's not a competition for me. It's more about the journey that I go through on the games that I play. Like the game that I spent the most time on recently was this game called Yakuza, right? And the whole point is like it's a series of games that are really popular in Japan. There's like only one or two that are out here in America, but the whole point of it is like it's kind of like following this narrative of this person's kind of rise in the Yakuza ranks, right? And there's this whole storyline that you can kind of get through. But I spent a lot more time on kind of the side games, like, oh, I'm like operating this real estate business that gets me the money that I use to like get like, you know, upgrade like my character or whatever. But like I spent probably more time on buying real estate and accomplishing real estate missions than the actual like Yakuza game like story. So it's like, you know, I mean like, and there's also aspects of it too where I can play like billiards or darts in the game against people online if I wanted to. I'm not interested in any of that at all.
Do you play sexy wrestling against people too, or is that just in the game?
That's his Boomba collection.
No. There's an element.
Wow.
There's an element to Yakuza in the game where you actually have two women wrestle.
Wow. Yeah, it's an underground like wrestling place that you bet money
on. I watched it.
But there's like there's no skill to it. It's just like betting money on like you know wrestling. But
women wrestle. Yes.
Yeah, I like how you always gravitate towards those aspects of the game.
But I mean, the thing with games too, like it's just to see how far they've come, like the 8-bit games that we played when we were kids, to like something as beautiful as Monument Valley, which is an online tablet game. Like you should have it on an iPad, but you can play it on your iPhone, and it's an absolutely beautiful game. Like it's like watching, I would say, a Miyazaki film, but on your tablet. And it's puzzle oriented, so it's like the physics of it are like 3D, and you have to figure out how to get like this one character from one area to the next. So you know, games have totally changed, and like I'm excited to talk to Edgen and Earl and their experience with gaming and like everything about it. All right, and so we'll take a short break and then we'll be right back. Hey you. Yeah, you. Are you a business owner? Are you a Filipino American business owner? Would you like to hear your ad on our show, This Filipino American Life? Like, if you can do that by sponsoring this Filipino American Life. Like, if you are a business that is now out of business, like, what businesses, guys?
Like Tatak Filipino. You could have remained in business if you advertised in this Filipino American Life.
Or you could still feed me Betsy's with your wonderful
Your delicious
pandesal if
pandesal.
you advertise on this Filipino American Life.
Or if you are from Daly City, you remember Sinugba.
Oh, I do remember seeing
Yeah, it's not there anymore. Sad, huh?
Well, they should have had an ad from this Filipino American Life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It would go on like right here, right now.
Hey, Ryan, how do you get an ad on this Filipino American Life?
You email us at thisfilipinoamericanlife@gmail.com or
what?
There is
Find
no
us.
or.
That's
Good
it.
job.
Yeah.
email us.
But yeah, if you were a business, you'd be hearing your ad right now instead of us talking to you about an ad that you could sponsor.
Exactly.
So sponsor us.
Thanks.
Thank you. And we're back with our guests, Earl Bailon and Edrin Sumagaysay.
Hey, what's up?
Did I say that name right, Edrin?
Yeah,
Sweet.
perfect.
And we are
right.
going to talk about gaming and D&D, right?
What?
DNT?
What? D&D? What is D&D?
What is D&D, Edrin?
Dungeons and Dragons is a game that was created in the early 70s by Gary Gygax and
Dave Arneson?
Dave Arneson. It was, it was a good
Wow.
one. The
Full
Wikipedia
history.
was right.
But yeah, so we're going to talk about those two things. Earl, you have experience in voiceovers. How did you get into that?
How did I get into voiceover? Well,
For games
for
and
games
acting in general. Yes.
specifically. Well, I started off as mainly on camera, and then I just got an audition all of a sudden from my agent. We weren't sure what it was because everything was like a code name, and it didn't exactly say what the project was. So I went in for the audition, and they had it on camera. I was really confused. I was like, "What's?" So I asked the director, and he was like, "Oh, this is for a video game." And I was like, "Oh, which one?" He was like, "It's for a video game."
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Secret.
Yeah.
It's all hush hush.
So I had no idea what it was until like I actually booked it, and I was actually backstage at SIPA during a room to improv show. We were doing improv, and then like I got an email from my agent, and she was like, "Hey, you just booked the new Tomb Raider," and I was like, "Oh." and then there's that reminder section afterwards. But by the way, you're still on NDA, so you can't tell anybody until the game comes out
So you're doing
for
an
2 years.
Oh, what?
2 years.
Wow.
2
Yeah.
years? So you're doing so explain what Room to Improv is.
Room to Improv is an Asian American improvisational theater troupe serving the LA community and beyond. I am the artistic director. We do monthly shows at the Secret Rose in North Hollywood.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're doing one of those shows, you get that email, and then you're like, I can't tell any of my friends.
I can't tell any of my friends that I am surrounded by right now.
Oh,
All they do, they see me go, "Ah!" And they're like, "Dude, Earl, what's wrong?" I'm like, nothing. I'm good.
Were you like, I signed an NDA, I can't tell you? Or you couldn't even say that?
I told them eventually, like after the show, that like I just booked this project. I'm on NDA, but holy crap.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then what was the project one more time?
It was the 2013 reboot of Tomb Raider.
And then what was your character?
His name is Jonah. He's this big Polynesian dude.
Did he have any like quips or lines that we would recognize?
I don't know, but like people, all my friends always ask me to do the fish line. And it's basically there's a scene where he's grabbing a fish and teaching you how to cut it.
So what
And
is it? What's
he
the
goes,
line?
Well, what you got to do is take a firm grip, and then you slice it down the belly like this.
Okay, that to me is really funny, and I'm giggling so hard because Mike's played Tomb Raider with you, and the moment you came on, I was like, Earl, it's Earl, but it's Jonah, and then the whole time I'm like, that's so weird.
I know.
It's like, why is Earl yelling at me? What did I do?
Laura, get the hell over here! Oh my god! All that stuff.
It's the game. It's the game.
You know, it's funny when I went to when I saw when Tomb Raider first came out as a movie, my uncle went up to me and goes, "Oh, Joseph, have you seen that movie, that Tom Raider?" Oh, Tomb Raider. Okay, I get it. Yeah, it's the Tomb Raider.
You know, there's actually Lara Croft cosplayer, and he calls us. Yeah, he goes under Tom Raider.
That's good.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
he's a homie. Isaac, what's up, man?
So did you always have? Did people always notice that you probably have a voice for something like video games?
I guess like growing up, it was just kind of one of the things that I did. Like I had a distinctive sound because I growing up, I had a voice that was deeper than usual for like a 12-year-old. So everybody was like, "Man, what's going on here?" And I started singing, and I kept on doing that, and it's everything's kind of grown from that, just like an extension of like how I sound. So
Yes.
yeah,
Earl and I went to UC Irvine together.
we did.
With Mike, and Earl and I were a part of Uniting Voices.
United Voice.
It's a group on campus that is basically a choir.
So
Yeah.
you're a tenor, Earl?
I was. Yeah, I did.
You're soprano.
I sang tenor in college, which makes no sense.
Your voice is so deep. Why did they do that?
I don't know. I think it's just because I have a higher range, like up top, which means.
Oh, wait, you were actually a tenor.
Yeah.
Oh, I was
Actually-
totally kidding.
No, he was.
I was totally kidding. Okay, cool.
and we were in PCN choir numerous times.
So many times.
We know how to sing the national anthem like
I
on
know.
cue. We're not gonna do that.
Don't do it.
We're
Don't
not.
do it.
Ang piling mo.
So, I mean, to pull that idea even further back, I mean,
Yeah.
can you talk about, how you even got into gaming in the first place? Since we're talking about gaming, video games, Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
what brought you into that world just in general? And Adrian too, like maybe if you have some thoughts about that as well.
Dude, I don't know. For me, it was like back when I was maybe 3 or 4, and my dad had an Atari 2600.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And like I would play a lot of pole position, a lot of tank pong, which is
that
like
the
Pong,
one-
but like with tanks.
Tank.
Yeah.
Is that the one with the Astro shooter thing?
I don't remember
asteroids.
Asteroids.
Oh,
I don't think we had
okay.
asteroids. But
Astro shooter.
Celestial Body Destroyer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all the way back to the Atari 2600, and that single joystick with a single button, and it kind of just grew from there. We got a NES, and
A Nintendo Entertainment System.
yes,
I think people will understand NES, right?
I'm just saying.
Maybe young folks don't.
yeah, but that's all kind of where it grew from. I don't know about like Ed's like D&D. I actually don't know how Ed started playing D&D.
Yeah, how did you start playing, Adrian?
Good lead up.
Nice.
This is what I do.
Well done.
I'm an improviser.
Well, I've thought about this a lot because this question comes up whenever we play D&D, and
Yeah.
someone who doesn't play D wonders how people get involved in it. Mine's a sad story, though. You know what I mean? Like growing up in Pacoima, there wasn't a lot of Filipinos, so I didn't hang out with a lot of people. The only thing I could do is like watch cartoons, read comic books, and go to Walden Books. And then near the comic book section, yeah, in the Panorama Mall. You guys remember that
Yes,
shit?
I do.
It was so easy to steal. And honestly, that's like how I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, because they were free. Because we would steal it. Because it was in the corner. I don't know if you guys remember.
I do remember.
It was in the corner, way in the back, where no one ever went. Just like a whole wall.
Wow,
of-
rest in peace, Walden Book.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Well, that
Peace.
Walden book specifically was a rectangular box. So if you went to the back corner,
Yeah.
no one watched you. So
And
you
they
could easily lift things.
They didn't have cameras, and they didn't
Yeah.
have like the alarms. It was sweet, golden time.
Wasn't
Yeah.
wasn't every store like a rectangular box? That's
I don't know, like isn't that just a store shape in general?
Shut up, all right. That's
So
going to
we-
be my new one. Rectangular box.
So I would take it and then bring it home. And the funny thing is, the way it's written, it's the module, the adventure modules. It's not written like a book. It's almost like a choose your own adventure, right? So they have a map, and then as the dungeon master, you read the passage that they wrote, and then the players choose. So whatever choice they made in the module, they had options for it, for the dungeon master to lead the people. So I read it and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is like a 3-dimensional story. You know what I mean? With dragons and elves. So I really got into it. I didn't play it yet because I had no one to play it with, and I forced my cousins to play. They were like 7. You know what I mean? I was like 12. They didn't even know what they were doing. But yeah, it was up until like high school when I met people who actually played is when I really started playing. But I always was attracted to it because of the pictures that they used on the modules by Larry Elmore and
Larry Elmore.
Yeah.
He did all the covers for the Dragonlance books.
And that was an interesting thing because me and Earl never knew each other until like later on in our adult lives.
Yeah.
But growing up, we read the same Dungeons and Dragons novels.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
so crazy.
Yeah.
When was it invented?
74?
Yeah, something like
73,
that.
74? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I only remember the old school Atari game, Dungeons and Dragons.
Like Pools of Radiance. And,
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
The
SSI. Yeah.
Strategic
Whoa.
something
Yeah.
solution.
You did that at the same time.
Wait, so I mean, if you didn't have a lot of people to play with, I mean, how did you eventually really get into it? Then did you start finding community? Did you create your own community, or like, and
Well-
were they like just random people that you knew that kind of were just into it too, or?
You kind of got to understand back then, like Dungeons and Dragons was something that no one did, and you never told people that you,
You
did
never
it.
talked about it.
Yeah, because it was embarrassing.
It was like Fight Club.
Yeah. Well, not really. Like Nerd Club. Nerd Club. You know what I mean? Like Get Beat Up Club. But it was like I said, like when I was in college, again, it was the same thing with Earl. Like randomly you meet people. It's in the Filipino club that I was in. Met some people, started smoking cigarettes with them, and we just randomly talked about stuff. And then it just turned out that they read the same books that Earl read, that I read. Dragonlance, the Chronicles. That was the best.
Yeah.
It opened up the world to. It opened up your mundane world to this fantasy world where literally anything is possible because it's in your imagination.
Yeah.
You know what I
It's
mean?
literally Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones was a thing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like
Yeah.
your imagination's kind of out there. It's what video games were before video games, right? That's awesome.
So I guess you talked about it a little bit, but for the completely uninitiated, can you kind of describe what Dungeons and Dragons is?
Yeah, to someone like me.
Yeah, I have no idea what it is.
idea.
Before we get too deep into kind of like, the aspects of it.
There are like thousands of like podcasts that try to explain it, but unless you actually play it,
It's hard.
for 7 sessions at least, then you really
7?
won't get it. Yeah, because you gotta like if you're beginning, the first couple of sessions you're like, what the fuck am I doing?
Oh,
and then the
it's-
first question that comes up is, I can do anything. You know what I mean? So basically, it's a table where a group of people, let's say 5, get together around a table. There's no board. There's no board. And there's no like little characters unless you decide to incorporate that in the game. But the whole game takes place in your head. One person's the dungeon master. The other people are the player characters. Each person has a character that they created that's put into a world that the dungeon master creates, and then you just go at it. You ask the players as the dungeon master, what do you want to do? And you could literally do anything. You know what I mean?
Based on your character.
Based on your character and based on the world.
So why don't you describe like what type of characters there are for somebody who's never played a role-playing game that would be like a Dungeons and Dragon? Because Mike and I have experience in this world in that
Yeah.
we play role-playing games.
Whoa. Little too TMI, dude.
Not sexual.
Oh, that's funny. Dungeon
Carry on, though.
Yeah. I know.
Excuse me. Get your mind out of the
There's
gutter,
a lot
guys.
of boiled leather.
I mean, games like Golden Sun.
Whoa.
Just kidding. Stop it. Or Final Fantasy. Wow, all of that sounds really sexual. But you know what I'm saying.
Golden Sun is a really good game.
Thank you.
2-player game.
Yeah.
Stop.
So I don't know. I always kind of describe Dungeons and Dragons as playing make believe with rules.
Okay.
So yeah, I know. I've been working on that one for like 10 years. But it's a fantasy world. If you think about it, it's like all of the grand majority of today's modern fantasy comes from J.R.R. Tolkien stuff. So a lot of the characters that you have in modern D&D settings, most of them are Tolkien-esque. So you have elves, gnomes, dwarves,
Or
half elves,
European
orcs.
European medieval folklore.
European medieval folklore, but there are like Oriental Adventures, which was a book.
that was funny.
Yeah, back in the
Karator.
Karator, Henjiokai, Shinobi, and all that stuff.
Ujin.
Yeah. Sword Saints.
Wow.
Kansai, yeah.
This is fascinating to me. I'm absolutely
Really?
fascinated.
Is this
by it.
really?
But like,
Yeah,
Absolutely. You have no idea. Because I have no idea what Dungeons and Dragons is, but I always had just a perception of, well, one, I always thought, I don't know what it is, therefore I'm just going to kind of dismiss it. And also, I don't know what it is. I don't think I have the energy or the time to find out what it is, what it's about. Because I think it's very complex. And hearing from you guys,
Yeah.
it's absolutely complex. And I don't think I have that kind of imagination either. I don't, but
So
This is
I
all
always equated it to like they play you play a bunch of role playing games within this within medieval castles and elves and wizards and all that stuff. I've never been attracted to that motif, that whole genre.
Yeah.
I never liked it. So that's why I was kind of like, whatever it is. But what you're telling me is like you could just create any kind of make believe land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can, and there are like campaign worlds like Eberron,
Yeah.
which is like more sci-fi based, or Dark Sun, which is like more like post-apocalyptic based.
And it's Spelljammer, which is basically Star Trek,
Yeah.
magic Star Trek.
So you can take any fantasy setting and apply the rules to D&D, which is a roll 20 or a D20 system, to any fantasy setting or any sci-fi setting or any kind of people run modern day like
Yeah, it's called modern.
yeah.
all right, can I take a step back for a second? So, so you were going through the setup. So you had like a 5-person, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to that because I'm all interested in this now. You said everything kind of takes place in the head. What are the rules? Like who makes up the rules?
The Wizards of the Coast do. So basically, so in the early 19th, I think 74, 75, when it was first created, it was because these guys, a bunch of people were playing war games, which is like a huge map, and they have armies, and they basically
Like
have
Risk or something.
Risk.
Yeah, but like way crazier, like Axis and Allies, but like with way crazy rules. They use a ruler to determine the distance. You know what I mean? Like that shit's crazy, and it's expensive because you're buying these figurines and painting it. Anyway, but what Dungeons and Dragons was a game on top of that about what happened between the fighting. Like where are you going to the castle, or how are you getting your ammunition? Do you have a horse? Do you have a cart? You know what I mean? How much can the cart carry? You know, shit like that. Seriously, it's like how complicated it got. That was the first edition. And then in the 80s, 90s, it came out with second edition.
Yeah.
2010s came out with third edition. Later 2010s came out with fourth. And now recently in the past like 3 or 4 years, fifth edition has come out. And each edition has different sets of rules. Like I said, earlier on, it was way complicated, like super, super complicated. That's why games would last like 18 hours.
Oh my
You know what I mean?
Like rules about encumbrance, how much you can carry, like things like called shots and all that.
Yeah.
It was
They all
really-
had different rules to the thing. But to answer your question,
Like give me yeah. But the
Breakdown.
question was like, what else is on the table? Is there,
okay.
I guess maybe it'd be helpful to like walk through like say like a quick kind of preview of what a session would look like.
yeah.
Like
So we
you guys
would
are gonna
be
play
in
later
a
on
table
today.
like 5.
yeah.
Let's say
Yeah.
5 of us, right?
Yeah.
like a table like this.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That
you'd
we're
be.
at.
Let's say you're the dungeon master.
Yes.
Okay, you're the dungeon master.
Dungeon Master, yes.
How would you start it? Would you?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just say it's the first session, right? And everyone has their own. Everyone has already made their characters before we start playing. The world has already been established of what exists in there and what doesn't. You know what I
And
mean?
you
Like,
create that. You make that up. Okay.
But some of the like Wizards of the Coast, they sell campaign worlds.
Got it.
So the
So
dungeon.
you read
master-
it. You read it
Yeah.
out loud, and
Well, we read what the world is like because basically what it is a reference. It's like an encyclopedia. In this part of the land, these types of people live here. They dress like this. They don't like elves. You know what I mean? Blah,
Got it.
blah. And then this. So you put the group of people that you guys play in an area of the map and you start the scenario by, and usually you're in a tavern. You know what I mean? There's a bartender and he walks, and then a guy rushes through the front door. He has red robes on and he's bleeding green. What do you guys do? And then you guys take turns about what your character wants to do. And you've also developed like a personality too. You know what I mean? So a lot of the interaction sometimes happens between the players. You know what I mean? So it's really fun. It's improv. It's not always fighting, but it also depends on who you have at your table because there's so many different types of groups that play. You know what I mean? Like our group is like kind of like a wargaming group. We'd like to fight.
right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's other groups out there that never fight, and all of it is like
Really like
intrigue.
the role play.
Yeah. They have the voices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right. This is kind of a weird question. How do you win? Is there such a thing, Earl?
I don't know if there's actually winning in the sense of like there's not an end game.
Got it.
It's almost all it's arbitrary between like what the players want and what the DM is kind of planning for this group. I mean, you could end up in a place where like you at the end of your campaign, like maybe 20, 30 sessions in or whatever, you rule a make-believe land, and you've created the entire economy of like a region. And you've like destroyed this giant evil dragon that has been terrorizing the countryside. That could be the end, or the end could be literally it could be anything.
Yeah. How you win is like if you're a player character, you have an idea of what your character's like and what what the motivations of that character are. If their end goal is to rule the kingdom and then they end up ruling the kingdom, then they succeeded. You know what I mean? Or like one of the characters that I played or that I'm playing right now, he has a cursed sword that wants him to go to hell and destroy it. So that's how that character would win.
Bankai.
Yeah, Bankai.
Yeah.
So as awesome. Creative as you can get with your character's story, that gets incorporated in the overall story that everyone's playing at the same time. And that's the fun part. You got these multiple stories going on, and everyone wins when everyone has fun, basically.
And it can be like super like simple. It can go from like I want to find my long lost father, as an end goal, to I want to take over the God of War's place in the celestial pantheon. You know,
or sometimes I want to get I want to get married, have kids.
Yeah, you can
have a farm, like anything you want.
So it could be like the game of life kind of thing. Like
Wow. Except elves. Elves and dwarves.
To bring it back to a point that you were starting to make earlier, Edrin, you know, and again, trying to find people even just play with. I mean, I guess what drew the both of you to such an intricate system of gaming? I mean, again, like, you know, Earl, you operate also in the world of kind of just video games in general. Mm-hmm. And there are role-playing games where all this stuff is kind of established and you can just click your way through that, like a Final Fantasy or whatever. Yeah. But what brought you to those kind of table games, and why do you still keep on playing them to this day?
I'm not sure what. I think a lot of it grew, at least for me, through. For some reason, I gravitated towards fantasy stuff growing up. Like my favorite movie is Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, high five. Yeah. Yes.
So I mean, I love that stuff, and that's what made me pick up Dragonlance, the novels, and when I realized that I could take my love for whatever this was and create kind of my own world through a set of rules, that's kind of what made me want to do it.
When I started Dungeons & Dragons, I was always the DM first. I never really played. So as the Dungeon Master, you have to learn what the rules are, and you have to kind of memorize it. And I don't know, I guess back then when I had an empty head, you know what I mean? That was like fun, trying to figure out how to create a story with a bunch of people that are also creating the story, and no one knows how it's going to end, but still keeping it cohesive. And it's all based off of the rules that they wrote. You know what I mean? It's like it's ingenious how they write these rules, because it allows you the flexibility of imagination, but at the same time, it doesn't let you go crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
when you guys got started playing too, like, were there other Filipino kids playing this as well? Like, I do have memories of my cousins in the mid 80s, having, you know, really, really nice, you know, little like figurines, those little metal figurines that they would spend a lot of time painting up and making it look really nice. Like, I couldn't go into the rooms because it was either smelling of paint fumes or they didn't want me to touch their stuff. You know, and they had like all these die sets and everything, but you're not really understanding, you know, like what was the draw for them. You know, I was like, I just want to play freaking Mario Brothers, you know? You know, so when you really got into it, and obviously it's a communal kind of game. I mean, who was in your community at those times?
For me in high school, I had one friend that played, and he was my DM, and we would play with different other people. Never my Filipino friends. My Filipino friends were not into it.
Yeah, they liked. Yeah,
I had one friend who was kind of like my proto D&D friend. We used to play stuff like Hero Quest, which is like a kind of a watered down.
I remember that.
Like Hero Quest, Dragon Strike, which are D&D-esque. They're like dungeon crawling, but they're not as big and like cohesive with the rules. So we used to do that stuff all the time. But there was never any other Filipino Americans in my my gaming group, at least not growing up.
For me, I forced my cousins to play when and they were Filipino. You know what I mean? But in high school,
How does that work? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm older. We're playing this. Stop crying.
Wait, if you made them play, what role did they play?
They played the characters I created for them.
So what? So you're like,
No, but again, this is the bad DMing. This is the first time. That's
so
not
you're like,
how you're supposed
you're
to do
gonna
them.
be a rogue.
Yeah.
You're gonna be an orc.
Yeah. You're Russell the Red. You're Hyrule the Scourge. You have a pet turtle and a Viking helmet.
And then would your cousins be like, I have no idea what a Viking helmet is,
Yeah.
and be like,
Yeah.
It sounds like when you play Monopoly with like little kids, but you're really playing for them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna roll the dice for you and movie character. Oh, you're gonna sell me Boardwalk right now for $100.
Yeah. Again, that's like 12 years old. But later on, when I was an adult, the people that I hung out with, it actually, you're drawn to certain types of people because you're a certain type of way. Mm-hmm. And so I had friends that actually liked the same things that I did. They played Dungeons and Dragons. They played the same video games. I met them at the donut shop playing Street Fighter. You know what I mean? So we all liked the same things. And then someone just said randomly one time when we were drinking, "Hey, do you want to play Dungeons and Dragons?" I'm like, "Okay." And then we just started playing. And majority of them were Filipino just because I was hanging out with them. You know what I mean?
What did your parents think of all this gaming growing up?
I don't think my parents really understood it.
Yeah.
Like,
were they like, what is all this Dungeons and Dragons?
Dungeons and Dragons.
What is this?
I think I had it like the upbringing where like as long as I wasn't smoking weed or gangbang, they let me like do whatever. So
You're like, oh, you're a winner.
yeah. So it was a lot of hands off for me, and like I did mostly video gaming in high school and stuff.
What video games, Earl?
I played a lot of Legend of Zelda,
Gold cartridge?
a gold cartridge.
You could say.
Did you have the Nintendo Power Guide, or you just do it off the dome?
Nah, dude, I was like off the dome. I was like, because I would look at the Nintendo Power Guide and I'm like, I can't do this. Not until I've beaten it once, and then I would go back with the
You gotta do it that way.
the Nintendo Power Guide and get all the secrets.
I played Legend of Zelda in college,
Nice.
and I didn't
Were you in
want.
college in 1988? Is that what happened?
No, I brought my Nintendo system up to school, and I didn't know if it would save. You know how you have to save? You can
Yeah.
save the game.
Yeah.
And I was scared, and I was gonna go away for the weekend.
So you're like, don't
So I-
touch this, don't
so
turn
I
it
kept
off.
it on.
Oh, my
Kept it on
gosh.
for a weekend. I came back and played Zelda. But yeah, I was 10 years late in playing the game because when I was I didn't have games in my Nintendo. I had Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
So I borrowed this game Zelda, and at first I was like, "Oh, this is weird. I don't know what to do." Right? Until college, where I'm like bored, and I'm like, "I'm gonna play the gold game that I got from my friend," and I just couldn't stop playing it.
Joe,
And yeah, it was great.
Did you play games, Joe? You don't seem like much of a video game guy. I don't know why.
No, I had regular Nintendo, and I stopped playing it after like middle school, and just never got into video games. I played a little bit of what's that? GoldenEye
On the
That's
N64.
not-
No,
in
everybody
college.
played
That's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
GoldenEye.
everyone we
Yeah.
played in college.
and
yeah.
Mario Kart because
Yeah.
my friend had an
Party
N64.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, I never got into video games.
Because Joe plays outside.
But then, did any of you guys know anybody who played Dungeons and Dragons, for example?
I did not. I didn't even know what that was until probably college.
Yeah, it was just referenced a lot. I didn't really know what it was.
I kind of just lumped it all together with like magic cards and just all that kind of stuff.
Magic.
And then I was like, okay, well, yeah.
I was always curious about it and wanted to play, but I didn't know anybody that would play it with me. And also, I was a jock, as Mike likes to say about me all the time.
Jock.
But and like my cousins didn't play Dungeons and Dragons, but we played like regular like video games and stuff. Not fantasy stuff, but like
The
you know,
Mario.
like Contra, Mario, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game on NES is
So
super
hard.
hard. That
Oh
you always
God, the
die.
swimming level.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I can't ever pass that.
No, I mean, I guess I was curious because, like, for me, maybe it's because I grew up in the suburbs, but one of the things that my parents latched onto right away was that Dungeons and Dragons were bad because it was
Really?
like there was some kind of like religious like thing about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Cultish?
Yeah, because I mean, there was a lot of news reports in the 80s about like, oh, like if your kids are playing Dungeons and Dragons, they're probably like in a cult or they're devil worshippers or stuff like that, right? Like kind of common suburban kind of like fears that parents would have.
Parents just don't understand.
And so like they were, they knew that my cousins would play, and they would always be kind of like, oh, don't touch that stuff. That stuff is like not good or whatever, right?
So they thought if you touched a 20-sided die, like you'd burn in hell.
Or something like that, right? Because they weren't super religious, but they would latch onto those things very
almost like the
easily,
Ouija
right?
board ish kind
Yeah,
of.
That's
you know,
real, though.
They
You're
would never.
going to-
We would never have that in the house. But I mean, like with video games, because they couldn't really, they didn't quite understand at the time. The only thing they understood was that video games were like stealing my time away from homework, and so they would sometimes put limits on that. But they would always be like, if I'd walk by like one of those D&D, was it called Wizards of the Coast? Those stores back in the 80s and
Like
something.
game
like that?
hobby shops.
Game hobby shops, and be like, no, that's for adults or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they wouldn't let me go in those stores because like they were like,
Really?
I think also because of the drawings. Remember the art back in the
Yeah.
day, like those
Half
really
naked
kind of
women,
like,
lizard men,
what's that
vampires.
guy's name?
Demons.
R.A. Salvatore.
Yeah. I actually had a deck of
Wow.
like cards of his art one
Yeah.
time that I got from the comic shop, but it's like they would see that as like, oh, that's like bomba. You're not supposed to.
Oh yeah,
You know,
because it's like
bold.
big tits
Yeah.
and bikinis.
So there was kind of like this weird kind of like, okay, those games
Boris
are not
Vallejo.
cool, but like Zelda or whatever is cool because we don't understand it as much as like these news reports are telling us.
To answer both your questions, my aunts didn't want my cousins playing Dungeons and Dragons with me. Like they actually told them to stop playing. You know what I mean? And a lot of it is because there's demons that are in the game, and they're actually named after the demons. Because Dungeons and Dragons, like he said, like Earl said, based off of Tolkien's works, but his works are based off of like fictional, actual mythological creatures of England, Egypt, Asia. And so when you incorporate demons that are, mentioned in the Bible, you have these Filipino American or Filipino Catholics, old
Yeah,
ladies.
totally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, what the fuck is that? Well, in the Filipino accent.
Putangina, Dungeons and Dragons.
That one is that Lucifer.
Yeah, so I know, yeah, like they actually had stats for like Lucifer, Asmodeus, Beelzebub,
Pazuzu.
and shit like that.
Yeah.
Beelzebub.
Yeah, and so
I like saying
Baylor's, Batazu.
Yeah,
all that
so when
stuff.
when the
Wow.
the older Filipinos saw it or heard that we were fighting demons, they were like, "What the fuck?" They don't want their kids to die. But at the same time, in the game, your character's beating up demons.
You
Your
fight
character's like
demons,
fighting
yeah.
them. You know what I mean? I don't know. I never got it.
But there's also, there was like total widespread hysteria, like in the 80s. Like they even had that movie Mazes and Monsters with
Yeah.
Tom Hanks,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
where like he plays D&D and then he goes like off the handle, like ends up like killing himself. I don't even remember, man. I just saw it and I was like, this is stupid.
But doesn't that seem like it was like a thing about, it was something against nerd culture? It was kind of like, because I feel like in the 80s it was very much like jocks, anti-nerd, right? Like in Karate
Yeah.
Kid, it's like Johnny versus Daniel-san, and it's like Cobra Kai versus Mr. Miyagi, and it's very like bro, and then Mr. Miyagi is very I guess in that analogy, Cobra Kai is the jacks, and then Mr. Miyagi is the gaming Dungeons and Dragons peoples, and it's kind of like, so like the culture, that's what they were selling. Like they weren't going to sell you the fantasy as being something good. They want to sell you like
As something being weak, right?
as something being weak and something being
Yeah.
bad. But how could they do that? Because Labyrinth was like the dopest freaking movie ever. It's basically Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, I don't think I was allowed to
with
watch Labyrinth
David
either.
Bowie.
Actually, now that I think about it,
What?
The one with Jennifer Connelly?
Yeah, David Bowie.
with David Bowie's like devilish like penis like bouncing
Yeah,
around in
I
his
know.
like jumpsuit. Yeah.
His underwearless like tights.
I don't remember that. I had a crush on Jennifer Connelly though.
Really, we're paying attention to the
all
different things.
Have I just awakened something in myself?
But I mean, yeah, I think in the the most common things amongst my friends growing up that were Filipino is like we all were about like Street Fighter, about like kind of those kind of like action kind of video games, and like we would also look at like things like Dungeons and Dragons and even role playing games in general. I think a lot of my friends were kind of like, oh, that's
nerdy.
some nerdy shit, right?
Yeah.
There's definitely a hierarchy. of
Totally.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say is the hierarchy of games?
Like at the very broest is like the games like COD,
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, Battlefield, all the kind of big popular war and destroying games.
Like the games where if you're on an Xbox or something, like there's a
Yeah.
9-year-old yelling at you for not
exactly
fulfilling your
about
job.
like and saying bad things about your mom.
Exactly.
all that stuff. And then I at the very bottom there are dating sims. I'm just kidding. But RPGs are way down there. At least they were. They were for a while.
What?
They're
RPGs, role-playing games.
Okay.
They were for a while until like Warcraft became a thing, I think.
All right, off the wall question. If you were to create a Filipino themed game, whether it be a table game or a video game, what would that be like?
Dude, I've been thinking about this for a while.
So have I.
Yeah, right?
What?
Yeah, we should talk about this shit.
I
dude.
know.
We should fucking make this already.
Since
Okay.
college.
Okay,
dude.
let's workshop it right
What do you
now.
mean?
So there's nothing like that,
No.
even remotely close.
No.
Like not a tabletop game, not a D&D
No.
game, not
I know that Wills Protasio would sometimes incorporate mythological creatures from the Philippines into some
his
of
comic
his,
books,
Yeah, into
yeah.
his comic books. What was it called? Oswong or something like that?
I think he was working on something.
Yeah, something like
with Oswald,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, that's the only thing that I really know when it comes to, because like what we said earlier, everything's based off of Tolkien. Tolkien's based off of mythological creatures from Europe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't have a lot of the monsters that we know.
So there's no white ladies.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
no
Aswang,
Aswang.
Gab-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like to answer your
Palang.
question, if we were going to create like one of the things that I'm thinking about is like just making a world. This is one thing about the Dungeon Master. There's a lot of coffee in me right now, so sorry. The thing about the Dungeon Master, you could create a story in a world that is like a replication of what exists right now. So all the news stories that are going on as a Dungeon Master, you could incorporate those stories. And instead of like Trump, he's like an orc
Right.
or some shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
President Orc.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
President
Anyway.
Cheeto Orc.
But like,
Cheeto Orc.
so one thing that you could do as a dungeon master, if you're not using the modules that you buy, you create the world, and depending on how creative you want to get, you can create whatever story you want. You could do the same thing with the monsters. You know what I mean? So they have stat blocks, like what we were saying earlier. Not to get too into it, but every monster has stats.
Like how
and-
strong they are, how
strong
they
they
hit
are.
you,
Yeah. What they
kind
can
of
do.
magical attacks.
Yeah. And so you create that based off of what we know the characters or what we know these monsters to be. You just plop them into the world, have a story around them. Like the White Lady. Like if your character needs to cross a bridge from one town to the next.
Oh man.
And then and it's at night, and
Okay.
then your characters
Let's-
roll
let's-
a perception check.
Let's do this scenario right now. So white lady crossing a bridge, and then Earl's playing with his whatever character. How would that work?
You guys were starting off at one edge of the bridge, and the other end that leads to the other town is probably like 100 yards away.
Okay.
You guys got the bridge only is like 10 feet wide, so only two of you guys can go
At a time?
At a time.
Okay.
Or in the front at least. You know what I
Okay.
mean? You can't like Wizard of Oz hand hold it.
Okay.
Can you edit that out?
Keep it in. Keep it in.
But so then you guys would determine who's going first, second, blah blah blah.
So we'd like roll for like who.
well, you
would
guys
do
just
it.
decide.
Oh, okay. Hey,
Like-
who's gonna go first?
Usually it'd be like depending on what skills you have, like if
Yeah.
you have the highest hit points or like
Okay, I'm ultimate Kali master.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ultimate
Cool. No,
Collie.
that's
So that's like-
two weapon fighting.
yeah, 2-weapon fighting where it's like a monk. You could
He could be if he wanted
Yeah.
to be agile.
Oh, Ryan's
Ryan,
a
what are you
priest.
gonna be?
Ryan's
Ryan, you're gonna be a priest.
cleric.
Cleric.
He's the magical Santo Nino.
Mike, what are
That's
you
your
gonna
spell focus.
I usually like being a paladin.
Paladin?
So you're first.
Because like
Yeah.
multi like fast.
I like being rogue.
All right,
But it's
so
also
you're
at
in the
night
back.
too, so you guys need to have a light source, and the light source can only project up to like 10 feet in front of you.
Okay, so I'm a rogue with a light source.
Okay,
it's
so
made
then
of
you're in
that.
the front.
Wait, what's a rogue?
They're like agile.
thieves.
Kind of like
Agile
thieves. Kind of like
thieves.
thieves.
They're
Okay, what's a
thieves.
pala?
It's kind of like a mix of like a thief and a
Paladins.
fighter sometimes,
Paladin.
A knight.
depending on what you're playing.
Yeah.
If you think about like Eomer or like in Lord of the Rings, he would be like a paladin kind.
I've never watched any of the Lord of the Rings.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Even
Get the fuck out of here.
Even I watched Lord of the Rings.
Okay, so in this scenario, if I'm a rogue with a light source, I go first. So does Ultimate Kali Master come with me first?
If you
or-
want to.
Yeah,
Or,
it's all
You
guys
about
decide.
what
We
you
gotta
Or
want.
decide.
Paladin.
We gotta
So
decide.
who do we decide? Come on, TFAL, who's going with me? I got the light.
The priest? Yeah, the priest.
But he
Wow.
we're gonna die because he
kidding.
doesn't fight.
The dungeon master sometimes gets to fuck around with the player characters by reacting in a way that
Mike,
makes
what do
them
you
scared.
think?
Oh.
I'll hold up the rear.
Okay, you're gonna hold up the rear.
If I have, like,
I think Joe and I need to go to the front.
Okay, we'll go for it.
Fine.
Okay.
So
All
at
right.
this point, we can't really continue because we don't have the characters in front of you or dice.
Damn.
But what would happen is that we would, you would say that you start walking, and then at a certain point, if there's another, that white lady appears, you would have to roll. Everyone would have to roll a skill they have called perception.
Okay, could
to
Earl
see if
be
they
the
see
white
it.
lady?
No, because he's a
No.
player. He's the one
Yeah.
right behind you.
Oh, okay.
He's in your party.
Oh, he's in the party. So
Anyway,
then,
So you roll the dice and then
Do a perception check.
Yeah. So whoever actually succeeds on the roll will see the white lady, and depending on what the white lady can do, that effect would happen. You could talk to her, or you could attack, or you could turn around, or you could jump off the bridge, or whatever one you guys want to do.
Well, I want to talk to her.
Okay.
So then you would roll like a what? Like,
You would roll something.
Yeah.
I would roll something, and then
You would roll like. Well, first of all, you would have to roll something, but you would tell me what you're saying to the white lady.
Okay, I want to say, why are you here? What do you want?
We're really gonna play right now? We don't have dice.
And then the white lady says, "I want to colonize you."
But see, that's another aspect of Dungeons and Dragons too. There's a lot of like joking around. You know what I mean? So this is part of Dungeons and Dragons too. You know what I mean? Where we have these inside jokes, and that's why, in my opinion, it's like one of the best games because you create relationships with each other inside and outside the game.
I really want to cross this bridge. I want to go make it.
I guess we're gonna have to create this game at some point.
We could. You could just
The world is just a bridge.
Yes.
The world is just a bridge.
So how do you-
Holy crap! That's an excellent name.
Say if you wanted to create this campaign or it's campaign, right?
Yeah.
How would you go about doing that? You just make it up and you want to like sell it to people or
Oh, shit!
make it official.
Oh man,
Oh,
this
okay.
thing. This is the. Oh, sorry, man.
No. Because
We're
you're going to
getting
talk
so
about like the
excited.
DMs Guild and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Right now is like it's weird. Just to kind of wrap it or
It's
put
like
everything
free for
together.
all right now in
Yeah.
like creators world
It's
for
fucking.
D&D.
It's crazy because now because of the internet,
Yeah.
it allows everyone to people can actually live stream games with people that are in different countries. So people in different countries can play with each other. You know what I mean? What the Dungeon Master they have Wizards of the Coast has this thing called the DMs Guild. It's a little website that they have where content creators, which is anyone out there, you take their rules, create something like a new monster, a new class, or a new world, upload it onto that site, and they can sell it. And then Wizards of the Coast will get a piece, and if they really, really like it, they'll hire you. Again, it's just like acting, voiceover work. That's like a 1 in a million shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's an opportunity that your average, everyday, regular player never really had before. And it's happening like right now. There's like so many people just throwing stuff up on that DMs Guild. Wizards of the Coast doesn't even have to research and development team. You know what I mean?
they
They're
just
just like pick and
pitch.
choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Basically,
Gosh.
they scout. They look at whoever is making the most sales, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Hey, you, what's up?"
Wow.
Huh. So have you ever seen any kind of Filipino? No.
I've seen Asian ones. You know what I mean? Like Asian monsters, like Japanese monsters, Chinese monsters.
Because that has always been like pretty popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. In role playing stuff. Like, I mean, if you think about like the general awareness of like Filipino mythology and all that, it's not popular. Nobody knows like what the hell a tikbalang is. So you know,
What's a tikbalang?
it's a horseman.
Oh, like a centaur?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a half.
Yeah. But it's only the head part that's a horse.
Yeah.
Only the head part's a horse,
Ooh,
and then
shit.
the
That's a
bottom
good
is a
one.
human?
Yeah.
Oh.
Or
wanna
the
make that.
manananggal.
Yeah.
What's that one?
Isn't that an aswang?
No, the manananggal is the one that like half of its body like flies away and the like
And you have to kill the bottom half
yeah,
before.
pour salt in it or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
See,
yeah.
that's actually perfect because these are like monsters that no one's ever experienced, but they all have like weaknesses and strengths.
Right.
Yeah.
Very
And
clear
in the
like
game-
lore and like things. Yeah.
They'd have lore, and in the game, that's where your characters would discover through a series of adventures how to defeat it, what it wants,
Right.
and that's the whole fun of it. You know what I mean? Trying to figure out what you're gonna do with this thing.
Yeah, you guys need to make this happen somehow.
So how do we make it happen? And can we make it like TFAL presents The World is Just a Bridge?
Are you guys gonna Patreon us?
I mean, we could. Like, that sounds like an excellent game.
Yeah. We need an
Throw that up,
illustrator.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah, we
there's
do need
no-
an illustrator. Yeah.
So there's no Filipino one. There's like remotely. There's a Asian one. Like, how do you feel about kind of the representations within kind of RPG?
In terms of Filipinos.
No, just like in general. Like,
general?
is it always like? Is it mostly like white people and their fantasies and English folklore fantasies? Is there diversity in
D&D?
D&D or diversity in kind of the gaming world?
I think like for something like D&D, because it's like it's been so tied to European folklore that there's not a lot of diversity or representation in terms of the content. There are other systems, something like the Dresden Files, where
I've heard of that.
That's a good one.
where there's a little more.
Isn't that vampire based?
No,
something,
it's
or-
there's vampires in it, but it's urban fantasy, so it's like modern day world with like magic.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a little more leeway. Like my last Dresden Files campaign, I felt my character was, he was a dude that found out he was like half capre. So
Nice.
What's a capre?
like the giant that like sits in trees and like smokes
Yeah,
cigars.
dude.
And you have to
Those
like,
would be so fun to bake.
Yeah, dude.
It's
So
to
like
pa-
whenever
to
he
pass
would
a
get
tree.
whenever he would get
Oh.
mad, he would start emanating smoke all of a sudden and didn't know why.
Oh shit.
Yeah, dude.
Oh my god! If
That's a
would
good
that
one.
would your character be with us as we cross this bridge to get the white lady?
We could. I mean, that's the thing that like half breeds like happen a lot in like fantasy settings.
Would this capre half breed fight the white lady?
We could if my character so decided to. Yeah.
Do you think your character would decide to?
Yes, maybe if it came to that, if talking was of no recourse,
I bet it wouldn't be it. I bet she would like come at us really hard.
probably she would probably.
Are you
Like,
really trying to play this game right now?
I really am.
You're trying to,
you should probably.
Because I'm
Drain us.
imagining it in my mind, like in my head, I see us on this bridge, this 100-foot bridge that is 10 feet wide, and that I am in the front with my light source with Kali Master Joe, and that Ryan with his clericness holding his rosary and possibly some holy water to throw at the white lady, and then you bringing up the rear trying to see if there's anybody behind us, if there's a capre there or not, or maybe even a duende trying to fuck with us. You never know. So in my head, I'm like, how the heck are we going to talk to this white lady? What are we going to do? How are we going to get there? I really want to get to the other side of the bridge. I want to have some siesta with some friends. I don't know. I want to go to sleep.
well, what's on the other side of the bridge?
The other side of the bridge. What's on the other side of the bridge, Adrian?
The town where you guys are supposed to get to.
Exactly. So I want to
we're
get
not.
there.
Yeah,
There's a
we're not
lechon
going to play
waiting for us.
tonight.
There's a
Sorry.
lechon waiting for us.
It's Marikina.
Oh my
It's on-
God.
And my dad's from there.
I think this like Filipino mythology based campaign, there would be a lot of like horror aspects to
Yeah,
it.
because-
A lot of
Totally.
fear.
Yeah,
You know
it'd be
what I
Like a
mean?
moving
Ravenloft.
Santo
Yeah,
Nino.
it'd be like it'd be things like that. I think because I don't know if it has something to do with like Catholic upbringing, but there's a lot of like
monsters.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean, like that. Don't go through that door. There's a fucking witch there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, how many times has that actually been said to you as a child?
Yeah.
Don't go there. There's a momo.
Yeah.
That was what I used to say when I babysat and I didn't want my cousins to go down a staircase. I
Yeah.
said, don't go down there. There's a Momo there.
Yeah.
You're going to die. So this is a game that we are going to have happen one day.
Okay.
I think
That'd be
so.
awesome.
It would
just
be
have to
totally
create the stat
awesome.
blocks. Yeah.
We would. Edrin, Earl, it's going to
Yeah, if
happen.
we record it, that'd be. I'm open to that.
Yeah?
Dude, that could be the podcast we're looking for.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. We'll piggyback. Tell them. Just kidding.
Yeah. You could
Presented
be,
by TFAL.
you could be on our made up TFL network that
Our
called
podcast
This will be like our
podcast
first
network.
spin-off is like
first spin-off.
TFAL tabletop games or something.
It will be called The World is Just a Bridge.
Oh, that's a good one.
I like it.
I
Bridge
like
World.
it.
Colon Moo Moo.
Yeah. Oh my god. Well, thank you. We are at almost an hour, so we want to let you all go. Is there anything that you want to plug? Any future endeavors? Any restaurants you want to say that people should go to? Any shows that people should go buy tickets for?
Yeah.
Or what are projects that you guys are working
projects that you're
on, or
working
things,
on.
or you know.
What's your
tell
next
the
video
people.
game that you're going to
Oh
be
yeah,
voiceover?
can you talk about it?
No.
But you're doing one. You're doing another one.
I don't even
There's
know
an
if I can
NDA.
say
There's an
that.
NDA.
Yeah.
There's an NDA.
You didn't even say you're hired.
I'm working on things.
Did you get a job?
Yes, that may or may not.
Damn, son.
I love the vagueness of it. Oh man.
But like, do you have anything else like room to improv or?
I plugged. Well, yeah, Room to Improv. We're an Asian American theater group serving the LA community and beyond, and we do first Friday shows. We're starting back again in September at the at the Secret Rose Theater, roomtoimprov.net.
And are you on Facebook and Twitter? Or
Facebook, Twitter. Oh, yeah.
At RTI or
At Room to Improv.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you can find me all over the internet.
At Early Be Good.
Yeah. Just search Earl Balon. Ugly face.
How are you?
Not
dude?
ugly.
How about you, Mr. Sumagaisai?
I got nothing.
Don't you work at
I
this
don't do anything.
restaurant?
Oh, yeah. If you're hungry, go to the Park's Finest.
Great plug.
Coconut beef over the bibinka. I'm telling you.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, a lot of
I've
people
never
do
had
that.
that.
Yeah, dude.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Wow, that's a good mix.
Elote over rice, because
Because you already do that anyway.
yeah, exactly. Anything else, guys?
No, this has been
Yeah.
enlightening.
Awesome. I learned so much.
So much. I feel like we need to do a part 2. Maybe one day we just record us playing D&D
We
with
should, yeah,
Edwin
we
as
should
a
actually just
DM.
play the game.
We should try and play the game.
To be honest, actually, that's kind of like what I kind of want to do too. Like get new people that have never played it, never
Yeah.
even heard of it.
We have
and
never
just,
played.
Yeah, and just record how they react to
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean?
Let's do it.
That'd be cool.
I think we should do it.
But we got to do a Filipino version.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's
Edwin
make the
and
fucking
Earl will
world,
write
man.
it.
do
They'll
it.
make it. They'll
I
make the
will
world is
so
just a
wanna
bridge. We'll get over that bridge. Yeah.
Gotta create player classes and then
I bet. Hey,
Yeah.
TFAL people, if you want,
Susan?
if you want to play this game with us, let us know.
We'll set up a game
We'll
night.
set up a game night, and you can let us know by subscribing and rating us on iTunes. And in your iTunes rating, you should write, "The world is just a bridge. Hell yes, I want to play the game with you." Because I would,
Along with your review.
along with your review.
Yeah, please read us.
It helps people find us, and you can find us on the internet on Twitter at TFAL Podcast. We're on Facebook, This Filipino American Life. Instagram, if you hashtag TFAL Podcast or hashtag Bullet Club, you will find something related to our show. And
This FilipinoAmericanLife.com is our website.
the correct. If you want to sponsor us as a Patreon, you can. If you want to just give us money, you can.
We are everywhere.
We're everywhere. But thank you. Let us know your thoughts on gaming and D&D. If you could be a character, what would your character be and why? Let us know. And we out. This Filipino American Life is produced by Michael Nailat. Our intro and outro music is by Roger Habon, aka 10.4 Raj. Resident reality checker Girly Colado, legal advisor Rianne Fajardo, and graphic design by Vincent Collyer.